Alrighty. Well, welcome, Shea, to my little podcast. I have thoroughly enjoyed reading your book. Your kind of set way of writing and your vibe is very my vibe. Like I like the lighthearted, even though like freelancing is really not lighthearted at all. I like your approach to it, and that. So I don't know if you want to maybe just introduce yourself, give us a bit of an overview, what it is that you do, why you do it. And you can shamelessly plug your book as much as you want throughout this entire.
Awesome. Oh, thanks for that, Megan, and wonderful to be able to chat to you today. And I'm glad you enjoyed the book, because really my goal is to help as many freelancers as I can out there. Whether you're first starting off or whether like you've been in the business for a while, I hope that there's some nuggets in there that everyone can use. And to be honest, writing it was a great exercise for me as well, because I learned a lot along the way and was forced to really think a bit more about my business, which has been really helpful. So yes, I am from the KZN Midlands and I'm a freelance writer. And I got into freelance writing. I've always, since I was a kid, being the one keeping the little poetry book on the side, getting my friends writing their essays for them at high school, always side hustling with writing projects. So in 2017, it was, I actually ended up with a side hustle job that was paying me more than my full-time role. So it was quite an easy transition to leave the full-time world of work and join the freelancing economy. And I've never looked back.
That's amazing. Obviously, you had the whole thing running before, because my journey was slightly different. I was retrenched and I changed careers completely. And so it took a while for everything to kind of get off the ground. And then I had to deal with COVID as well, because I've been doing this since mid-2019. So it just started gaining traction. How did COVID affect you? You obviously are still around, and you wrote a book about how you can freelance like a boss. So obviously you freelanced like a boss through COVID.
So I think for me, and I think for the profession in general, even if at the time there were some difficulties, I think it's been a boon. And the reason I say that is because it opened people's, particularly South Africans' minds to the fact that you don't need to be sitting in an office in order to be working. Having people working from home and remotely, it made companies realize, well, wait a second, do I really need someone full-time, bum in the seat doing this role? Or can I use the services ad hoc as and when I need them, which can be a more scalable and actually sensible model for a lot of businesses. So I think it really has actually opened companies' minds to, well, wait a minute, do I actually need someone here all day?
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I found that directly after COVID, I actually saw a drop off. And I don't know if it's because, like you say, people were forced into that by retrenchments and losing jobs and companies closing, that kind of thing. And they kind of then went into freelancing. And I don't know if a lot of companies maybe got burned by freelancers who didn't know what they were doing. Excuse me. I don't know if it's, I don't know how to quite explain it, but like freelance, you get freelancers and you get freelancers. So why do you think that some are really good at what they do, they succeed, and others don't? Like I say, I came into contact with a lot of businesses who didn't want to work with me because I was a freelancer. And it took me actually taking freelancer out of my title before they would work with me, because I do think that there was some kind of, like you say, a flood of freelancers during COVID, and then they kind of let everyone down. So I don't know if you want to maybe dive into that, what your experience was.
So I think it comes down to adding value. So, I kind of liken it to going to a restaurant. So there's a restaurant here in the Midlands. It's hellish expensive, But I keep going back because I walk away from there thinking, hey, that was really good value for money. You know, the service was amazing. The ambience was great. That's the best steak I've ever eaten in my entire life. You know, although it's a treat to go, I can't afford to go every day. I'm more than happy to pay that amount. Whereas, you know, there's another restaurant I'll go to and pay half the price and feel like I got ripped off. So I think it all comes down to, as you say, providing a quality service. And that goes beyond just being really good at what you do. Because it's one thing to be good at really good at making the best steak in the world, but if the waiter forgot to put in your order, you're not going to have a great experience. So it's about providing that holistic service, you know, being pleasant to work with, doing your job really well, getting your deadlines done on time. I mean, it's the basics really that you need to tick those boxes, and then you become invaluable. And when you become invaluable, people will happily pay whatever you quote because they'd rather pay and know that they're getting a job done properly than, as you say, getting burnt by freelancers who've let them down. So quality and service above all, I think, is what will define your success as a freelancer.
Yeah. Now, I waited until I was 35 and I have like 15 or 16 years of corporate experience behind me. And that informed the way I deal with clients. So in my case, I feel it's a good thing. You know, I've taken what the best portions of my corporate experience were, I've applied them to my own business and I've added my own little twist. And, you know, that has created my vibe that people enjoy working with me, etc. But I'm still super professional. But now, that's not necessarily a good thing because, like, if you've ever worked in a corporate company, there's a lot of bureaucracy and red tape and that kind of thing, and processes, unnecessary processes, should I say. So, you know, it kind of conditions your way of thinking, and it's difficult to break out of that. So, kind of, what are your feelings on previous experience? When should you start freelancing? Should you kind of give yourself a little bit of corporate experience? You know, should you work in a different field like volunteering or teaching or whatever, and then start freelancing? Is it safe to do it straight out of college? What is your feeling on kind of the corporate experience versus actually running your own business?
So, I mean, I followed a similar path to you, although I wasn't in like proper corporal type corporate. You know, I did work in an office environment. And, you know, I would say that it did give me some helpful business acumen for sure. And then, I mean, to your point, although, you know, you say it can condition you into a way of doing things, it can also help you identify and become very aware of the corporate cuck that you actually want absolutely nothing to do with. So, you know, I mean, Megan, you and I, we aren't that young anymore, unfortunately. And it's a whole new world out there. So, I mean, you know, when I first started working, I don't think I even had the internet at home, you know, never mind the idea of working from home. So I think the experience these days can be so different because maybe you can dive straight in because you've got a world of learning right at your fingertips. You know, you've got Google, you've got online courses, you can find a mentor or heck, like ask on Facebook groups. So, you know, nowadays it might be a bit different in that you can actually transition with no corporate experience into the freelance world. I found it helpful to gain some business experience that way, but I'm not sure that that's necessarily the case anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of risk averse, and I must be honest. I never saw myself running my own business, but you know, the opportunity presented itself, and my kind of journey was quite interesting because I was actually looking. I worked in travel. I was a product manager at Comme, and I was looking for a job in travel. And no one could match my salary, and it was all kind of the bits of the job that I really hated doing. And well, we all know what happened to Comme. So I was retrenched, and you know, I used that to start up, and I haven't looked back since. But a lot of people don't have that. You know, I suppose when you're young, what I'm trying to say is when you're young, you have the ability to absorb all that risk. And if you fail, you can kind of bounce back a lot easier. I mean, when you're starting your own business at 35, you've got a bond, you've got a car, you potentially have kids, you've got all these things that if you fail, it's going to have a much larger impact. So it's I don't know, work experience versus the ability to take the risk. It's difficult to balance that, I think.
I think that's also where your side hustling comes in, because that gives you the chance to get started while still having the cushion of a salary, hopefully. And you learn a lot along the way. You can learn what kind of clients you like, what kind of work you're good at, pick up some of those basic, invoice, how to send an invoice, and all those little skills that you need, that you can do on the side. So I think that's quite a seamless way to go about it. But also nowadays, I mean, how easy is it to find full-time work? I mean, a lot of people are really struggling. So I think just out of necessity, some young people, I mean, don't be scared to actually just go full into freelancing.
Yeah, you don't know until you give it a go, so most of the time it does work out if you're really working at it. But
Yes.
I've been in contact with a lot of freelancers who they try, but they're not trying, and then it doesn't obviously work, and this freelancing thing's not for me. But you do have to run it like a business, and it is a shit ton of work because it's like you say, it's not just the writing, it's the accounts, and it's the marketing, and the networking events, and all of that jazz that you are usually insulated from when you are working for somebody else.
Yeah, and I mean, I think to your point, you can't expect instant success, or you can't expect to be successful all the time. You have to really want it, and you have to be willing to sacrifice and be disciplined enough to make it work. It's not going to fall into your lap. You'll have situations where you might get lucky, find a really great client without trying too hard, but you can't expect that. So I think if you're not willing to take those big steps and put a lot of work into your business, then you're not going to get a lot out of your business.
Yeah. Now, let's look at the flip side. Now, say you have done everything right. You have registered as a business and you've done all your marketing. You really are doing everything by the book, your book. And
obviously.
obviously. And things are still not working out because I don't know, this is maybe just a very controversial opinion, but I do think that timing plays a lot of a role in, I wouldn't say luck, but some people just start their freelancing career at the right time, and the stars are all aligned, and the client rolls in, and you get a retainer quite early on, and that frees you to find other cool clients and stuff. Other people, their timing is just off. I think that anyone trying to start freelancing directly after COVID, for example, was going to have a little bit more of a rough time of it than somebody that was trying, during COVID. So say now you've given it the good old college try. Things are just not working out. You've done everything right. When's your advice to actually call it quits? Because especially if it's later in life, I say later in life, I'm only 40, but you eventually reach a stage where you have to be realistic and say this isn't working.
Well, look, at the end of the day, like you say, if you're not paying the bills, it's not going to be sustainable. So if you need to find something to tide you over, if that's some kind of part-time or full-time opportunity, that can give you that cushion to free up the rest of your time to actually work on your business and make it work. Because it's all well and good to say, as you say, you need to be dedicated, you need to apply yourself. That's cool. But if you're not making any money, it's going to be really difficult to actually do any of those things. So, there's nothing wrong with trying to saying no to freelance for now doesn't mean no to freelance forever. and maybe the time will be ready at a later stage, and things will align. But I think it's important to lean on your community and lean on your network and be vocal about what you're doing and what you want to get out of it. Because I mean, that's where a lot of businesses grow, is not looking sort of at the macro, big circle wide world. It's just starting with your community, with your network, with the people you know. And I'm a big advocate for telling everyone that you know what you do. They must be able to answer the question, oh, Shea's a freelance writer. She likes working for agencies and writing blogs and long-form content, etc., etc. Because even if those people never become a client, they become an advocate, and they'll know to refer you when they hear of someone who's looking for something. And it just takes one or two, to start getting you off the ground, and then you do a really good job, and then they tell someone else, and it's kind of a snowball effect from there. But you've got to start with that little icicle first of just who you know, and let it spread out naturally from there.
Yeah. Now, you obviously had a kind of thriving business before you actually went full time. How long did it take you to actually get that set up like that it was self-sustaining? Because some people start today and they move in the right circles already, so it's a lot quicker. Like me coming in, I didn't know anyone in the content marketing world, so I had to now start it with cold calling and actually just trying to get my name out there, never mind like my services. So it took a lot longer than somebody who's actually from that world. How long did it actually take you to get the business to a place where you were like, goodbye day job, I'm going to be doing this full time now?
So I think I was really fortunate in that, as I mentioned, that side hustle. So I was already doing a bit of side hustle work, which was nice, sort of extra money to boost my full-time income. And then I found the opportunity online for a side hustle that sort of equated to a half-day job kind of thing. And it was paying me more than my full-time salary. So I was accustomed to getting my full-time salary amount for the whole day, and all of a sudden I was getting the same amount for half a day's work, which freed up the rest of my half a day to look for other work. So I guess I was really, really fortunate, and as you say, right time, right place. So I was able to actually be self-sustaining from day one, really, which is unique and very, I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah, it helps. It helps being in a dual. I don't know. I think in your book you mentioned that you're married. It helps being a dual income in household as well, for somebody else to pick up the slack. Because like if you're trying to do this on your own and keep up with the expenses, I mean that's like an extra challenge that you have to deal with.
For sure. And I think also, I'm fiercely independent. So I also, you've got to adjust your lifestyle where you need to too. So if starting a freelance career means downgrading your car or downgrading the space that you live in, those are some sacrifices that might be worth making in the long run. How important is it to you really to drive the latest model off the showroom? I mean, I've had my Hyundai Getz, I think it's a 2010 model, still going, full of scratches, and I love it because I can drive dirty because it's so banged up already that there's not much more damage that can be done. So, they always advocate. So I've read quite a lot of financial management books because, as a freelancer, you need to be on top of your finances. And, you can try to say, cut a coffee here and there. That's not going to make a big difference. You need to look at the main places where you spend your money, which is generally your transport, your food, and your housing. What can you do about those? And see if you can scale back from there.
Yeah. Well, the cheapest car is a paid-off car.
Exactly.
And well, I mean, for myself, my partner and I only have one car, so that you cut your insurance and your car payments off, in half immediately. So yeah, I mean, it's all conscious choices about where you can cut your expenses, and it's very tempting. I don't know if you've been tempted.
Sorry.
Sorry. I don't know if you've been tempted when you've had a really, really good month, flip. Let's splurge a little bit. But like being a freelancer, you have to also think long term with your finances as well to control that.
Definitely. And I think it's such a huge part of running a successful business, but often forgotten about. So, in the book, I talk a lot about your safety nets. So, having those safety nets in place enables you to forge a sustainable business so that you're not living hand to mouth all the time. Because, the main reason why small businesses fail is cash flow. So, you need to be on top of your cash flow. You need to have emergency savings so that your business doesn't die as soon as the money runs out, or if you have a bad month.
Yeah. Now, that's actually a good kind of segue into one of the questions that I sent you that I thought might be interesting to discuss. In your book, you discuss the pros and cons of the different ways to actually register a business, because you get obviously your sole prop and your PTY. So let's talk labels. And like, is there a difference between freelancing and actually running a business? Because if not, why do we label ourselves as freelancers? Would it not just be better to tell people that we're running a small writing business, for example? So go.
So that's a really good question, which is basically code word for I have no idea. But I did give it some thought, and yes, freelancing is running a business. But I think the difference might come in the eyes of the market. So, in the eyes of the market, a freelancer is often equated to being a solopreneur, whereas a small writing business could be, I don't know, a team of up to like 20 people. So I think it really depends on the nature of your business. So if, like me, you are the business, it's in my name, I operate as a sole proprietor, people know that when they work with me, they work with me, and the freelancer label for me makes sense. Whereas, if you do plan on growing a small team, if you're thinking of subcontracting or adopting more of an agency or collective model, then maybe the term small business might be more appropriate. And interesting also that you mentioned that the word freelancer was having some negative connotations when you were approaching people too. So that's also something to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I'm a registered PTY, but the advice that I got when I was doing my research was that if I ever want to scale, it's best to have it set up as a PTY right from the word go. And having done this now for just 5 years, I don't know if I ever will scale, because I'm a control freak and not outsourcing stuff to people. It gives me like really bad anxiety. So. Kindred spirit. But I mean,
guilty.
There's pros and cons to both, and I'm glad I went the PTY route. It's working for me. But like you say, you need to do your research and understand what the ins and outs of each are.
Yes.
So other advice that freelancers get, and I've kind of got this for the entire 5 years that I've been doing this, is that you should niche as quickly as possible. But now I'm in the process of niching, and there's definitely benefits. But it's taken me 5 years of experimenting with different types of writing, different clients, to find out exactly what I was good at and what I enjoyed doing, because I do believe that there's a crossover. What you're good at, what you're passionate about, and what you can make money of. The three need to intersect in order to make a sustainable business. So the question I popped through to you, you said you weren't quite sure, because I think the terms you used were that you're somewhere between niche curious and niche shy. So I don't know if you want to dive in and let's have a discussion about the niche.
Definitely. So I'm 100% on Team Megan when it comes to, you need the experience in order to niche down, but I'm probably also completely the wrong person to ask, because I have been a bit niche resistant, although niche curious for the last few years. So, as you say, all the gurus say niche, 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 niche. And I'm just like, oh, But for me, I used to get bored very quickly with my previous jobs because I love variety. I love new things, and I love the variety of what I do. It's part of the reason that I became a freelancer in the first place. But I think, there's more to niching than just saying, I'm going to write about bunions for retirement magazines. You can focus on an industry, or you can focus on the kind of work you do, your medium of choice, your specialization of choice. And then as I was thinking about it, I realized, geez, I actually have over the years organically niched down into what I enjoy doing and what makes me money and what I'm passionate about. So I used to, when I first started my business, I would provide sort of marketing consultancies and more holistic services. And now I just do content. So, that's niching. And I've also found recently, I realized a sort of workaround for my need for variety and newness is to work for agencies, because then I'm benefiting from their broad client bases and getting to work on a lot of different things. But I've niched down to agencies, and specifically international agencies, because then I can charge more. So I guess,
yes,
to answer your question, I mean, I have niched down, but it was very much through a trial and error. And again, a 6-year process of getting to know what I enjoy and where the money is. So I personally don't advocate rushing into creating a niche, because I think it does take time and experience to know what you really want. But I mean, the beauty of freelancing is if you do rush down into a niche and it's not working, you can change it up. I mean, obviously you don't want to be flip-flopping and creating confusion in the market, but a niche now also doesn't mean a niche forever.
Yeah. Well, I find like like you say, it kind of has worked organically almost. I also started out like doing the strategy, and I'll do like your blogging and your social and your this and your that, and let's get a campaign on the go. And now I'm kind of like, no, I do long form because social media wants to make me kill myself. Like, so, but I don't know how long that's going to last. So I am yet to find who's writing for social. It's the bane of everybody's existence. I mean,
and I think it's changed so much over the years too. It's become so specialized. I really have no interest in staying up to date with what the latest trends are on TikTok. So I'm really not the right person.
Yeah, like I can do it, but I do it with tears in my eyes and like a vodka in the bottom desk drawer. Is there a downside to niching? Because like now, we've discussed, obviously niching is not necessarily on a specific topic. It can be you niche your client base, or you niche the form of writing that you do. Is there a downside? Because it's very difficult to like let something go if that's potentially going to be the next big thing. It's almost like if you are playing on the stock market and you sell your shares just before they like skyrocket, or you hold on to them too long and you actually make a loss. So is there a downside to niching, or what are your feelings on that?
Well, according to the gurus, absolutely not. Not sure if I believe everything they say. I was reading, and I can't remember if it was in Thinking Fast and Slow, or I've also just read Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, where he talks a lot about our bias, our cognitive bias towards loss aversion and sunken costs. Yeah, sunken costs. So like you're saying, you've gone down the path of niching.
The sunken costs fallacy.
Yes, exactly. So, and it's just that, a fallacy. So you feel like you've invested all of this into channeling down one niche, therefore you can't change, which is absolutely not true. Yes, you've done all of that work, but the past is the past. We need to look to the future. So, a downside of niching, yes, you might go down the wrong path, but I'm a real advocate for, if it's not serving you, change it. There's no point diving down deeper into those sunken costs and just finding yourself at the bottom of a pit. You've got to look forward. So I think that would be a potential downside of niching, but make a change. That's the beauty of freelancing, is it's in our control.
Yeah. Now, slightly related to the calling it quits thing, how do you know that you've given it enough time? Because, people are all about the instant gratification these days. They're not willing to wait for an actual return on investment on anything that they do. And I'm speaking generically, because where there are people that stick things out. But, it's you can't decide this week that you're going to be a social media specialist and then you don't get a client. And so next week, suddenly you're doing long form and that's now your niche. But eventually, I mean, if you've been sitting 6 months on social media speciality or specialization and it's still not working, you eventually have to call it quits as well. So how long is like giving it a good old, like you need to wait a little bit? Is it like a 6 month? I know for myself on LinkedIn, for example, my LinkedIn strategy, I only started seeing any kind of return on that 6 months later. So it's not an instant thing. So how long do you give yourself before you kind of change directions?
Well, I think you've got to look at the opportunity cost. So if we look at your LinkedIn, for example, it took 6 months before you started gaining any traction. But how much time were you sinking into it? I would guess, maybe max an hour a day if you were sort of engaging and doing a post a day. If you can afford to spend an hour a day, stick it out. If that hour that you have, you desperately need to spend on finding a client, then rather go with that route. So I guess it's not so much about putting a time to it, but looking in terms of what is this costing me in terms of opportunities? And am I essentially flogging a dead horse, and is this the best use of my time? Which as a freelancer, it's always a work in progress. I'm always second guessing, is what I'm doing right now the most important thing I can be doing for my business? So I think to put yourself at ease, it also helps to sort of carve out, okay, this is my client work time. This is my work on my business time. This is my social media time. So that at least you've got some structure. And then from there, you can see, okay, this isn't yielding anything. Maybe I need to change things up. But it's very difficult to try and put an actual month time date to it. I think, as we spoke about earlier, if you are desperate and don't have anything to fall back on and actually need the money, you need to do what you need to do to make sure that you have enough money to be able to pursue your dreams, So I think it's so individualized to the person. But I think I would urge people, as you say, don't give up after a week. Look at what else do I need to learn? Is there a skill gap that I'm missing, or something that I'm not doing right, which is causing me not to work out? So I think also just that idea of constant learning, constant self-evaluation, and seeking feedback from others can help move you forward too.
Yeah. Another thing that you mentioned in the book is red flags and clients, and looking for clients, saying yes, saying no, and then breaking up with a client. And so toxic clients are a subject very close to my heart. And I'm sure that you've had to deal with them. I've actually just got rid of one in the last few weeks. I don't even want to. Yes, thank you. And this was all prior to me having your book. They're not the first client I've fired, but I thought that I handled it very diplomatically, because I told them, it's not you, it's me. As you say in your book, you make it like it's not your fault, it's really me. And it really is like ending a relationship. So I don't know if you want to maybe dive into toxic clients a little bit, because they are the bane of anyone's existence. They really do make you wonder why you decided to do freelancing in the first place. They suck all your energy. You don't want to get out of bed in the morning, and every time you get a message from them, like a little piece of your soul just dies. So I don't know. I don't know if you've got any stories that you could share.
Yeah. So unfortunately, it is almost a rite of passage. It shouldn't be, but it is. And sometimes the only way that you really learn is by getting burnt. And even then, so I had a client that I worked for a couple of years ago, and I said, never again. Just a pain. Like nothing was ever good enough, didn't pay on time, feedback was vague, feedback like this could be better crafted. Okay, doesn't really help me. Anyway, so this was a couple of years ago, and this client recently contacted me to do some work for her, and I said yes. Why? I mean, I remembered from so many years ago, but I said yes, and instantly regretted it. And guess what? She still hasn't paid me. So hopefully, now that I've been bitten twice, I won't do it again. So, and that was knowing that it was a toxic client, and I still said yes. So it really is a work in progress. But I think also, it's actually better to be proactive and avoid them from the beginning. So sometimes, you mustn't ignore just those feelings you get that tell you, this isn't quite a good fit for me. And it's hard because you're a freelancer. You don't know where your next client is coming. You want to make as much money as you can for the lean times, and it's hard to say no. But I think something that's also, again, really helped me with this is focusing on opportunity costs. So I take this job, but that means that I don't have the capacity to take on a potentially really great job that'll lead to much better things for someone that I really enjoy working for. So you almost have to rationalize it with yourself, but it's so much easier said than done. So, I mean, common red flags that I now look out for would be like, if they've pushed back on my rates are my rates. I'm not giving discounts. I'm not a supermarket. So that's a hard no. If they don't want to sign a contract for some reason, that's a major red flag. Asking for freebies. If they're disorganized, I mean, we're busy enough. We've got so many schedules to manage, different clients. The last thing you need is someone who doesn't give you feedback in time, and then it puts your whole schedule out. So disorganized, not a vibe. If they don't respect your boundaries, that's also huge. And that you have a life, outside of their project. You're a freelancer. You work for yourself. You're not an employee. So, clients that treat you like an employee, no, you've left that now. This is the reason you're a freelancer. So those are some of the things. And then, like I said, just feeling for those feelings. When something doesn't feel right, learn to listen to yourself, because your gut actually does know best.
Yeah, I've had a very similar experience, funny enough, with this client that I've recently just got rid of. Well, I actually don't know if I have got rid of them. They never replied to my email. So who knows?
Classic.
But I did some work for them last year. And it was all very last minute because their permanent writer had left. And they were looking to replace, and they decided to offer me a retainer, but then started treating me as a full-time employee. Last minute, I actually, my 40th birthday, I was going to take the day off. I ended up working until midnight. I was sitting in meetings and trying to get work done because they were on deadline. There was like no processes in place. Feedback was always at the last minute. So they always needed the stuff yesterday. I mean, it's just when you see that email comes through, or you see that WhatsApp comes through at like 8:30 at night, you're just like, why am I doing this? Why? It's like, it's not worth the money.
This is not why I became a freelancer.
It really is, especially when you're starting out, you're willing to put up with a lot more because you're worried that it's going to kind of, you say goodbye to the client and there goes all your money and it's ruined your reputation. But I've found in my experience, and I'm sure you have too, that if as soon as you say goodbye to a client, you might sit for a couple of weeks without something, but something does eventually float up and fill that. There's never a vacuum. There's never
100%. 100%. And I think you also have so much more. It's not even about time sometimes, it's about energy. Like those clients just drain you of your energy and your will to live and your will to freelance. So just by letting that go, almost the law of positive energy, that something good will come because you're just in a better space yourself.
Yeah. I'm seeing a business coach now, and he very much advocates, is like, you're making space for something better.
Exactly.
Yeah. We've been going for about 45 minutes, so I'm going to round off. There's a quick fire round, 5 quick. Well, not all of them are questions. I always try and test new things out on new people. So you're the guinea pig for 2 new
Cool.
sections. So you have, by most people's definition of the term, achieved career success, at least where you're sitting right now. Having now been successful, where to from here? Like, what is your long-term goal?
So it was almost quite jarring to hear you say that. It's like, oh wow, heck, I am successful. And I think that's a big learning in it too, is for us as freelancers to actually think, wait a minute, I've achieved quite a bit. I'm doing okay. Because I think, we get stuck on the hamster wheel and we forget to look back and realize how far we've come. So firstly, thank you. And so where I am now is,
well, you've got a book. You've got a book. So like that's a measure.
Wrote the book on it. Yeah.
in my book.
So where I am now is working on clients and projects that inspire me is what I want to work towards. And I want to work less while making the same amount of money so that I can spend more time on other things that fulfill me. So that's where I am now.
Cool. I'm the same, but I want to work less but earn more. So you can keep your same salary.
Ideally, yes. Sounds good to me.
Question 2. If all the books in the world suddenly spontaneously combust except for one, what would it be and why? Your own book is not included.
Oh, well, I mean, that was my obvious answer. Well, another really a book that I treasure. I mean, it doesn't compare, but a book that I do treasure is I have an anthology, a Shakespeare anthology that's about this thick, and it's got all his works, and it's got gold on the pages. What do you call that? On the outside of the pages, it's gold lined, gold rimmed. It's got a beautiful green leather cover. So that's definitely a book I covet. And firstly, I don't even know if it would be able to go up in flames anyway, because it's such a duck thing. But I think it's important. I know it's nerdy, but I think Shakespeare still has a lot of influence and a lot of insight applying to today's society. So, and I'm an English literature student, so I'm hopeless. So that would be it.
Okay. I was going to say, I am very embarrassed to admit this, and I don't know why I'm doing it out loud. But I read all the blue study guides for Shakespeare and Charles Dickens when I was at high school. I couldn't be asked to read the real thing.
Spark notes.
So I am in the Neanderthal in your eyes now. But yeah, anything to pass, eh? So do you think if you're going for the gold lined pages and the leather bound, are you one of those bookish book nerds?
So I'm actually not at all. So it's almost one of the few books that I keep. I'm a read and pay it forward type. So if I buy a book, I'll give it to someone else. I don't like keeping books. I don't tend to reread books. So there's only a couple of books that I actually keep on a shelf, and he's one of them.
Oh, amazing. So I don't know if you've probably touched on this a little bit with reading and that kind of thing, but what do you do when you're not working?
Yeah, so I mean, I spend most of my workday in front of a screen, so pretty much anything that doesn't involve a screen. So love doing anything outside. During the week, I run to keep me sane. On the weekends, yeah, I just love getting out into nature, being away from a screen, day drinking with my friends, getting out there with a book, spending time by myself. yeah, and I'm quite fortunate. I love where I live in the Midlands that, we've got a lot of hiking trails accessible to us, and the beach isn't that far away. So, and my husband and I are quite into like actively, we love water skiing and scuba diving and all that kind of thing. So yeah, basically anything that gets me away from the screen that rules my life for most of the working week.
Do you find getting away from it helps actually feed back into the business? Because I've found that like doing like all the hobby type of things, a lot of skills you pick up doing that kind of feed back into the work that you do to earn money. So it's like the business is never really that far away.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, it is. And also, I think sometimes switching off completely is also really important, and to actually just forget that you run a business, because that's actually, when some of your best ideas pop in, is when your mind is kind of emptied with the day-to-day to-do list, and that's when you get those real aha type moments. So
100%. Next question. If you had to distill the best piece of business advice that you've ever received into a short tweet, what would it be? Although I believe tweets aren't a thing anymore. Elon Musk has officially renamed Twitter
an X.
Yeah. So if you had to distill the best piece of advice into a short X,
X.
What
doesn't have quite the same ring to it, does it? But anyway, so I'd say to remember that your greatest business asset is actually you. So invest in yourself. So invest in your skills, your health, your well-being, because only when you're looking after yourself can you actually create a successful business.
Yeah, awesome. And then the final, it's more of a challenge than a question. And perhaps we should have started with this because it's a great conversation starter I've found at networking events. Tell me something I don't know about freelancing or writing.
Well, because I'm a word nerd, I looked up the etymology of the word freelance, and it's actually pretty interesting. So the word was first used in a novel by Sir Walter Scott, in 1819. And I think the novel was called, it was a romance novel, Ivanhoe. And he actually used it to refer to medieval mercenaries who would fight for whoever paid them the most. So take from it what you will,
okay.
But I thought it was rather fitting. And yeah, so let's go out and kill it.
Yeah. Slaying.
Yeah, we're slaying. We be slaying.
Amazing. This has been very interesting, and I've really enjoyed chatting to you, or chatting with you. You can see my Grammarly is not turned on. So where can people get hold of you? You're all over social. So
LinkedIn's probably your best bet. Yeah. And then my website is www.sheakarssing.com. And then the book is available wherever you buy books. I think the cheapest I've seen it at the moment is on Loot for 170 Rand. But it's also on Takealot, at Exclusive Books, Wordsworth Books, Graffiti Books, Bargain Books, pretty much Amazon. So yeah, just look it up, Freelance Like a Boss by Shea Karssing.
Amazing. How's the book selling?
So I'll only really find out, I think the volumes don't exactly justify a monthly paycheck. So they only pay out once every 6 months. And unfortunately, I missed the May deadline. So I guess I'll only find out in November. But no, I can confidently say that I know enough people who've bought it. So it'll be interesting to see.
Amazing. Well, I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
And I think that what I like to try and do is eventually, this is the plan, the long-term goal is to catch up with all of the podcast guests I've had on before.
Awesome.
And in a couple of years and chat and see how things are going and what's changed.
Good idea.
Cool. Thanks so much, Shea.
Thanks, Megan. That was fun.
Cool.